Hello, students. This is Mr. Pearson. I hope you are all doing well. I know these are uncertain times. Just know that your teachers and administrators are doing all they can to support you, and I'm glad I can be a small part of that. That being said, let's set the stage for World War II. September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. Great Britain and France had agreed to help Poland in the event of a German invasion. So, on September 3rd, 1939, France and Great Britain declared war on Germany. That day, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain on BBC Radio gave an address to Great Britain that included the following paragraph. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin gave the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock that day, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany. He continues by saying, "You can imagine what a bitter blow it is to me that all my long struggle to win peace has failed." If you'll recall earlier, we talked about appeasement in class, and we can see here its ultimate failure. Germany employed a new form of warfare referred to as Blitzkrieg. Germany used this to quickly defeat an enemy by poking a hole in the enemy line and cutting off front lines from the rear, thus surrounding the enemy. Since ancient times, battles had mostly consisted of long lines of soldiers smashing into another long line of soldiers and essentially trying to push the other force back and make them flee. With the advent and widespread use of tanks and trucks, it became possible for forces to move faster, letting a strategy such as the Blitzkrieg be effective. Tanks and trucks could move much faster than soldiers on foot and on horses. So, Blitzkrieg used a coordinated attack on one part of the enemy line with air force, tanks, and artillery. The entire force would focus on a weak link, a chink in the enemy's armor, so to speak, and they would blast a hole in the line, rush through. Part of the force would then try to surround the enemy, or at least a portion of the enemy's force. And the main force would continue on, driving deep into enemy territory, usually headed towards an important city or a strategic location. You'll see a diagram in a moment of Blitzkrieg tactics. Poland was defeated in about a month, and partition occurred when the USSR attacked from the east. Remember, Germany and the USSR had made an agreement to divide Poland. Stalin invaded Finland in 1939 and annexed Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania in 1940 to create a buffer zone, believing Hitler would one day invade the Soviet Union. The Soviet war against Finland is referred to as the Winter War. If you'll recall that in 1939, Germany and the USSR signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, in which they agreed not to fight with each other. Stalin, however, did not entirely trust Hitler, as was wise, and Hitler did indeed break his word. Sitzkrieg means phony war. After the invasion of Poland, a 7-month lull ensued, causing some to say World War II was a myth. The world waited to see where Hitler might strike next. Remember, Poland was invaded in early February, so after it was subdued in about 6 weeks, winter was approaching. Historically, winter was a time of kind of a lull in warfare. It's more difficult to operate in winter. Obviously, it's cold. There's ice often on the roads. Soldiers operating in winter need more food. They also need heavier clothing. A large part of warfare is not just fighting, it's getting supplies to the soldiers. In spring of 1940, Hitler invaded Denmark, Norway, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, as we'll see. This is a diagram of Blitzkrieg tactics versus traditional deep battles. If you look here, this is how traditional battles have taken place since ancient times. You have one force lined up against another force, and then each force attempts to push the enemy back. Eventually, weak spots open up in the line, and one force will surround the other. Blitzkrieg, however, is different. You have one force having a traditional battle line, and the other force is very, very concentrated. All of their firepower is on a weak link. Of course, having good intelligence is a very necessary thing to identifying the weak link in the enemy's line. So you advance. Now you have a break in the enemy's force. You swing around. This is called flanking, to move your forces around an enemy's side. Then you can attack from the sides. You can see here, this continues, and this enemy is enveloped. The main force pushes through into enemy territory as fast as possible, usually advancing towards an important city, such as Paris.